All right,
Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. I just started.
it's okay. All right, we are recording in 3, 2.
Hello, and welcome to today's presentation, Change Agents Acting on Activism. My name is Regina Taylor. Today's webinar is presented as one of a series of events representing the Black Album Mixtape, a project that I've created in partnership with SMU. In response to the historical significance of 2020 defined by COVID-19 and social protests, the Black Album Mixtape invites students, professionals, and the community in the arts, technology, science, and activism to shape your work, to share your work, your thoughts, conversations in a medium of your choosing that answers questions and explores the issues that affect us today. Today, we have a special conversation with Harry Lennix. Harry Lennix is a distinguished film, television, stage actor, and producer. For the last 7 seasons, he has starred as Harold Cooper, Assistant Director of Counterterrorism for the FBI on NBC's The Blacklist. NBC recently announced that the series will return for a 9th season. Moviegoers know Lennix from his breakout role as Dresser in The Five Heartbeats, General Swanwick in Man of Steel, and Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Commander Locke in The Matrix and The Matrix Reloaded, and the Oscar-winning Ray. It was recently announced that he will be seen as superhero Marion Manhunter in Zack Snyder's eagerly anticipated Justice League and Snyder's animated series Army of the Dead on Netflix. He is regularly seen on Showtime's Billions. A proud Chicagoan, raised on the city's South Side, Lennix announced this month that he is creating the Lillian Marcy Center, an African-American museum of the performing arts, an arts complex he calls the Black version of Lincoln Center. Today's moderator, Troy Osborne Pryor, is a producer, host, and actor. His collaborations have led to projects with ABC, Warner Brothers, True TV, HGTV, and DIY Network. Troy is an advocate for connecting undiscovered diverse talent to mainstream media platforms through his production network, Creative Cipher, and under his chief company, Pryor Holdings. I'm delighted to welcome our panelists and to invite Mr. Pryor to lead today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor, for that. I appreciate the opportunity to guide the conversation today and be a part of the doing today.
Doing great, Troy. Did you? I'm sorry, you broke up for some reason just a second ago. Were you talking? We were.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. The internet may have just done something wonky for a second, but I was just saying I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you both and be a part of this conversation today.
Thank you. Me too. Very much looking forward to it. Thank you, Regina, for that warm introduction.
Thank you.
So we're going to get right into it. You know, this past year, these past couple of months have been very challenging. Lots going on in the world as far as the pandemic goes, as far as social unrest and highlighting things that have been going on for some time that are becoming a bit more visible. I'll start with you, Ms. Taylor. Can you talk to the people a little bit about how you've been able to cope with everything that's been going on in the world of these past few months?
It has been challenging the last year, the last 12 months. Each month I've lost someone that is dear to me. As we started the pandemic, I was trying to figure the ground that I stand on. I was very serious about sequestering, fearful of even going out, and trying to figure out how I continue to connect. If not in the same room, sharing the same breath, in close proximity with someone, how do you do that? That has been the challenge, even as you watch the world imploding, exploding, shifting as we speak. And I don't know of any time like this in my lifetime, certainly, where everybody is going through the same thing all at once on a global level. It's something that as we're seeing as witnesses and participants, we're seeing fractures happening, as well as people finding common ground. That's the challenge, is finding common ground. Certainly my work has been about finding that ground, even as I am challenged to connect with you from here. Right now, we are here and there all at once. I've always wanted to be able to, like in a sci-fi movie, to be a lot of places all at once. Do I get cloned? I go through this, and I am at the same time here. I am in Chicago. I am in Africa. I can be all at once in all of those places. I've gone through over this last 12 months, weddings, baby showers, funerals here in different places. And certainly the work has me, I have been working nonstop online, creating pieces online, teaching online. This initiative is online, the Black Album Mixtape. It is a mission and purpose in terms of connecting people, letting people know that they are not alone going through all of this, even in those times when we feel like we're on the floor in the dark, that you are not alone. And it is about this moment and how we get through that and how we get through that together.
So it is safe to say that during this time, technology has showed us that there are other ways to stay connected. So it will be interesting to see how we apply that moving forward. Mr. Lennox, I will ask you the same question. How have you coped or dealt with many of the things that have been going on over the past few months?
Yes, well, it's great to be with you, Troy. Thank you for having me, and from your side of it as a moderator, and both somebody also who has been dealing with it as Regina Taylor. We're both sort of figuring it out. All of us are figuring it out as we go along. I think that in some ways, Regina was quite philosophical there, talking about being in many places at one time, the nature of temporality, the nature of technology, and what it can do to, in some ways, I think you put it, Regina, as common ground, providing an electronic basis or digital basis, a virtual way, something which was inevitably happening, in some ways. All of the things that you, Troy, and Regina and I've been doing, we do these things all the time. We're always creating something, trying to bridge gaps, trying to make sense of this phenomena that we call everyday life. And so I think that in many ways, we are uniquely qualified for this time. The uncertainty of everything is something the actor, the artist deals with all the time. I think that perhaps the fact that for the first time, perhaps everybody knows, as Regina was saying, what this is, to figure it out as you go along, make a way out of no way, something that Black people are expert at, making a way out of no way, getting through difficult times. This is not new to us. The political movement, the moment, the disrest, the speaking truth to power, this is not new to us. And so, I think now that everybody now seems to have their own cause to get involved, or they were finally awakened to the reality that has been 400 years of the sojourn here in the United States, then so be it. Great. We'll see if it's long lasting. But certainly that's not even the first time. Much of the same, the advent of technology in the form of widespread television propagated the civil rights movement. So we know what this is. And I find it to be rather temporal. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. But I find that the way that I've gotten through it, which is really your question, is by doing what I always do, which is not know what the hell is coming. And so that's where we live. We live as artists in the scale. You know, there's I guess perhaps Shakespeare, as usual, would say something along, you know, he once was describing actors in the play Hamlet. I can't remember, Act 3 years of it, where he says, be sure to use them carefully, for they are the abstracts and brief chronicles of the time. And that's what this is. We're all in an abstract moment in time, unseen before, but so has every other moment been unseen before. And so I say now that as we come out of this and as we now have been forced to adopt to what it was going to be anyway, that is that people were already leaving their faith. We're already not going to the theater. We're already priced out of the things that should be their birthright. All of these things that now that we've had to grapple with it and that we've survived it, we actually perhaps have this unique moment in time, maybe never to come again this century, where we can actually move the needle to something closer to justice.
And those are really great points. I'm hearing a lot of, I'm hearing some scripture there. You know, this idea, there is nothing new under the sun. It's some reiteration of things of the past. You know, one of the things that you both touched on was this idea of the need for connection, being connected, reconnecting, and the fact that many of us are going through similar things during this time. For the benefit of those watching, I would love to hear your opinion on the importance of empathy, especially in these times where we seek to stay connected and understand one another. I'll start with you, Mr. Lennox.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, there's this idea that we have, you say empathy, whereas as a man who studied to be a priest, I think of compassion, right? Meaning effectively the same, for somebody to feel what another person is feeling, actually quite literally. Compassion means the ability to suffer with. So it's a little bit distinct from that. That is the willingness to suffer with someone else so that you might know them better, so that we might know ourselves through our commonality, going back again to this common ground idea that you was talking about, that everybody knows what it is to suffer. That's the entire really human equation, isn't it? How we are distinguished, for example, from angels or souls of a less physical nature, is our ability to unify by common experience, empathy, and so a common feeling. And so I think it's essential, really. I think this is why, you know, this is why there are such things as terrorism, because, you know, when the human limited that he and she is tries to connect on a moment of understanding or of joy, perhaps even, that it always seems to leave someone else out of the equation. But the one thing everybody can know simultaneously is pain. We can all suffer loss at the same time, whereas victories generally mean someone else's defeat, right? Or victory, you know what I mean? When the Lakers celebrate, the Bulls are not celebrating simultaneously. And so it's just a unique, it's a crazy thing to this experience. And I think that it is the last measure that we can actually feel what tragedy is for someone, to feel what loss is, because that we've all experienced, whereas we may not have all experienced some exultant moment. And so I think that, you know, again, we're in the purview of the artist, of capturing that moment and of giving it a beauty, which makes it in fact art and not journalism, for example. What is it the artist says? Well, we can agree that, life is painfully, sometimes love is painfully, exquisitely magnificent, right? And we capture it in a moment of beauty. We put an aesthetic on it. Whereas without that art, without that craft, it's just a fact. It's just an event that occurred. And so I think really, we are the conduit to this empathy, because I think we can also bring to it the resonance that it needs, that it requires. To capture such a moment as ours needs an artist.
And Mrs. Taylor, I'll pose that same question to you. When we think about staying connected and using our talents, our times and treasures, we are very conscious of understanding our purpose behind those. And so I would love to hear your take on how you are using your art to help connect us.
Yes, there's art, and there's art with purpose, and we have a long legacy of that from the time that we, as people brought from Africa to this continent, going through a period of time of enslavement. There's always been that strain of resistance. And a lot of times that got filtered through art. So whether that was the beating of the drums and the language that was relayed from one to another, you snatched that away and it turned into the tapping of the feet. The dance then form became again a strain of resistance in terms of the messages that were relayed in the songs of steal away, that people were relaying tonight. You gotta run and follow the North Star, to even the braiding of the hair, where you would braid a map up in the hair, to passing on the strain of resistance that was an art form, is also that art is a tool of survival. We've met challenges throughout our history before being brought to these shores that is always about, even with the music, this whether that's spirituals, that is an American art form. The strains of music that were carried through from Africa, the beating of the pulse of the rhythms, to then the scripture, the poetry of the script joined, became an American art form that field hollers into blues, into jazz, into in the 60s, one also understood it in terms of the art. Black people restricted to certain areas, segregation, but could seep through the doors, seep through the walls, the confines, the music on the radio inside one's homes, where we were not even brought into the front door, but the back if we worked there. Our consciousness, our dreams, our hopes, our pain are seeped into the ears of folk across the board and across continents, so that our being, in terms of being human beings, filtered through, in that form, the music. Always art has been subversive and a craft in which people can shift and change and rearrange and propagate and grow inside others empathy, which is necessary for us to see each other and find that common ground. I am very privileged to be a part of that, to find mission purpose in the work, in doing just that, in making who I am in this body seen and heard and felt by others. How many ways can you do that? Yeah.
And appreciate that for sure. And as we think about the fact that we're all on a journey, we're all on this life journey, how do we discover our purpose? At one point in time, one may ask, what is the meaning of it all? What is the meaning of life? But was there a point in time in your journey, and I'll start with you, Miss Taylor, where there was the aha moment, where you realized you were on the right path? Because the path, as nebulous as that may sound, is up and down all around the place. We're trying to figure it out. Was there an aha moment? And if so, what was that experience like, realizing that I'm in my purpose and I'm on the right path?
My mother started me early on. It is absolutely my mother's hand on mine and whispering in my ear. It was from before I can remember her teaching me how to create children's books. I may have been 4 or 5 years old, and my mother was a teacher, and she was very subversive in starting me early on in creating my own narrative. She said, that is, and she said it very purposefully, this is your survival tool, to be able to imagine, to dream yourself in any situation. It starts with dreaming. It starts with the creativity, dreaming. Then it is navigating, strategizing, how you get it from here and making it concrete. It then is hard work, practice, hard work to start with the imagination, imagine yourself in different situations. How do you make all of that concrete? She started me off in thinking like that with writing. That was a brilliant gift to give a little chocolate girl growing up in Dallas, Texas, West Dallas projects, where people had already imagined and spoken and written my narrative before I took my first breath. Absolutely. I
And
I've always known through her who, what, uh, how. I think it was the how. Yes, I've wandered through the who and the what, but the how of it is the gift that she gave me.
And Mr. Lennox, I'll pose that same question. I understand that you had an experience going through seminary and a desire to move into the clergy at one point in time. I would imagine that had an impact on some of the on your life's journey. So similar question for you, especially for those that are watching. We have a lot of students that may be watching right now. What was that aha moment, or was there a moment when you realized your path?
Well, first of all, Troy, you're making me follow Regina's magnificent answer to 2 questions in a row. No, I mean, listen, that was that whole narrative of the journey. This is what Leroy Jones talks about in Blues People, how we took what came from the experience and turned it into an art. And that, and the fact that that in its way is subversive. And I know that Regina, you may mean this in the traditional sense, but I hear also you probably meant that too, that it's underneath the words of it, which is where that comes from, under the letter, under the language, subversive, something that exists in a kind of ideation, the result of it as art. That's something. then the fact that your brother did a lot of that guiding, and to some extent, the thinking of the how, that's something I've had to arrive at as a function of the process, some of which includes that seminary thing, Troy, which is that I never would, I grew up in Chicago on the South Side, you know, just in the concrete jungle, so to speak. I played in the alley and these things. A confluence of all kinds of influences hit me at the same time. The South, people coming from there, moving on to the block, and this, the Muslims who had, you know, stores and schools and things like this, and just the civil rights movement and Black Power movement, and moving through that as a seminarian was very interesting, because I'm receiving, you know, reasons for it the way that it exists from the streets, and reasons that it exists from the church. And both are right and have to exist on some level, at least within my adolescent frame there for a few years. And processing that, you know, came about by processing that. The only way I could see solving was through art. You know, this is something that the transcendentalists in Germany talked about. This is, you know, the idea that there's a drive toward rigor and study and hard things, such as what's referred to as Formtrieb or something, the form of it. And then there's the other thing, which is sort of human nature, the wild abandon of it, the sort of the id, you know, expressed, gone wild, as it were, which is the Sehntrieb, the drive toward that. And the third way, the culmination of those other two, is called Spieltreiber, the realm of joy, where that's a combination of the two things. And for me, that's art. And it was also to Friedrich von Schiller. He said that that's the third way, is through aesthetics. And so I believe that this is the result of having studied rigorously philosophy and so forth and theology in the seminary, is that I was introduced to people who were thinking like Aquinas and so forth, that, you know, that God's expression of himself is the physical world. Things like aesthetics in Plato and all those stuff we had to read and or at least hear about. And that the only answer to me is art. The rest of it is politics and, you know, emotion and things of this, all of which are valuable on some level. Some of it is even, you know, corrupted sometimes into pure entertainment, you know, what do they call it? Guilty pleasures of some sort, artistically. So, but the only way that I could resolve the two duties and desire was through art. And I learned that really by studying the theologians.
I really appreciate that, and it resonates with me so much. I'm from the South Side of Chicago as well. Grew up in the Auburn Gresham area, but my great grandfather was a big minister, and I was raised to be a preacher. I've been in the pulpit since I was 13. So this, I see a lot of synergies as far as influences and things that I've studied on some of the moves that you made as a performer, as an actor, as an artist, as a creator, and so many of those things, as I studied a little bit, was very, you know, resonated with me very much so. So I was always curious as to how that impacted your journey. Now, because we have so many students that are tuning in, I would love, and I'll start with you, Mr. Lennix, just would love to hear a bit about how your college experience impacted your journey.
Yeah, well, you know, excuse me, college for me was Northwestern, and it's close to Chicago, and because of that, you know, I felt that it was an extension of Chicago in some ways, or at least what I was going to be learning if I had stayed there. But again, I think being up there on the North Shore and encountering, you know, people from all over the world in a way that I had never, you know, people from India, England, and all sorts of places. I probably wouldn't have had access to that kind of international thinking after, if I'd have just stayed on the South Side. And there are people, and there is some virtue in that, a kind of pureness of thinking, some of those people remain in the community, become community activists or whatever. If I'd have become a priest, I probably would have stayed there, and never left the South Side of Chicago, and believed that I would have done, good work that perhaps as or more valuable than my being an actor. So I sometimes regret that I left the seminary, and that I think that, science tells us all sorts of things. The being in two places is one thing as well. You can't measure both momentum and position with any certainty at the same time. And so I took a momentum journey up to Northwestern. Whereas if I had stayed in that position and been certain of that place on the South Side, that I could have with certainty have done a deeper dive on the life and the value, quality of life on the South Side. Do you see what I mean? So by casting, as it were, a wider net, by going up to Northwestern, I to some extent think I diluted the efficacy that I might have had if I had just stayed in place. That said, I'm incurably curious, and I would have been compelled at some point to see what else was out there, and so maybe getting an earlier start on that will at some point pay off. But I'm still trying to figure that out. And you asked something a little bit before, an aha moment. Before I give Regina the mic here, oh man, I knew, and this was not a moment of like anything other than, I can do that. I had that when I was in second grade and saw my brother perform a skit, and he was so convincing as a person who'd been knocked unconscious that I was like, man, I could do that. I can behave like that. I can act that way. And then when I was like, well, maybe I was born to do this, is that we were I was in fourth grade, and we were in an assembly, and a line came up that some kid missed. He missed his cue. And such was the nature of the moment that, we couldn't just have a 10-second gap. And I knew that. And I also knew his line. And so I tossed it up there. And I thought, later, looking back on it now, I was like, well, that was the moment when I thought I was an actor. And I got it, that I was an actor.
That's amazing. And even to your original point about Northwestern and Evanston, the scriptures do say go out into the world. So
Right.
it is a very valuable thing, and it's actually a conversation I have quite often, because I am in entertainment, which you appreciate. You have these two hats. You have this clergy influence, and sometimes with that comes a box. But now you have a vehicle and tools to have an even greater impact on the world.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes that means that you cannot stay in that box. You've been blessed with talents and gifts that if you were to stay in that box, you may not fully optimize your ability. And so that resonates so well with me, the idea of sometimes you have to go to grow. But Ms. Taylor, again, we have SMU watching, and I would love to hear how SMU impacted your experience.
Yes. I'd like to also just go back to the two of you. I'm glad that you guys are talking because it is that advocacy that runs through everything that you do. Certainly, you could stay home and do the work that you feel ministers to community. You have gone far and wide, Mr. Harry Lennix, to all over the globe, and you always return. And it is in that core essence of where you come from that you make it a point to give back, to return each and every time, to give back, not only to give back, but to bring other people along with you. That I think is that ministerial drive feeling in both of you, as well as Troy. That advocacy to shine light on those who might be unseen and voiceless. So I applaud. I applaud you in that. There is always a mission and purpose. Sometimes we take jobs because these are the things that are offered. It is what you do with your resources and your platform. Sometimes you can tie that work to the mission and purpose. Sometimes the mission and purpose is that you're present and seen. I was thinking about Miss Cicely Tyson, that I remember when I first saw her as a child on TV. That was back in the day with the color black and white TV, when we would be in the neighborhood and seeing her for the first time. We would always, if we saw somebody black and they looked like us, not only did they look like us, but they were being their full authentic selves. So representing us in a real way, not this, other way, but you recognize yourself. And I was struck by seeing Cicely Tyson for the first time, seeing her. And I was like, that's me in a real way. Harry, you've played so many different roles that encompass our different selves with the core of authenticity. We need to see that. That gives people hope. That gives us hope. And certainly in the same way that I saw Cicely Tyson for the first time, I was like, oh, that's me. And the possibilities then are opened, different, various possibilities. Someone who looks like that, me, in this world, in a real way. In terms of your craft, in terms of your art, in terms of being an actor, then has purpose and meaning that touches everyone across the globe. It's we who are in this industry and feeling a consciousness and a responsibility in terms of what's put out there and what's seen, that we can do something about that, and that we have. At certain points, the courage to do that, when we think about people like Cicely Tyson or Sidney Poitier or Harry Belafonte, and those before and after, who have been comfortable in being stars and having a platform and daring to speak truths and to affect changes, putting their own bodies on the line in marches, and their whole careers on the line, sometimes blacklisted because they dared to. So I applaud you both in your consciousness, and Harry, and in your always coming back, not only Chicago community, but communities, and your missions that are very purposeful. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise, Regina. You're a shining example. You are Cicely Tyson for this next generation. And even in more to the point, I think in the writing, the creating of content, the producing of your own content and own narrative and own story, I think is the final power. The fact that the work itself is the activism. you know, your insight of the presence, do you mean, is the result of your totality, as you say, as you so say. And, you know, from the quality of the work that you've done and the quality of projects where you've chosen to do that work, and seizing every opportunity to propagate a message and to promote self consciousness in a good way. Self-fulfillment is an inspiration, and it's been, you know, my pleasure to know you these past decades. So keep doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so happy to be on this panel with people of consciousness and motivation to affect a change in this world. Thank you.
Well, I am just happy to be in both of your presence, and hopefully I can, you know, move in the moving up in a path similar to the effect that you've had, you know, on our culture, on our industry and society. And, you know, Mr. Lennox, you brought up a really great point, and something that I drive home a lot, because I'm in this millennial digital content creator space, to that emerging creator, especially that creator of color that's watching this right now. I would love for you to tell them or give them some advice on understanding their value and the platform that they have as a creator.
Yeah, are you talking? I'm sorry, Troy. Did you want me to jump in, or was that for Regina?
Yes, that
I couldn't. I thought you said that, but yes. As I think about that, we take this quick sip. I think now more than any time ever, if there was the possibility of creating content with this when I was 20 years old, I'd have 100 movies out. Do you mean, like, there's and there's so many areas of undiscovered potential in this regard. That is to say, content that nobody's doing. There's a wealth of it. My personal belief is that for me, I'm going into the faith end of it. My friend Dr. Holly Carter had this great idea. Another friend of mine, Chad Cooper, both ministers, but there's an untapped market. The Black people in America are the most faithful, self-identifying people of faith in the planet on earth. And there's no content for them outside of gospel music or something, a couple of reality shows or something. You could go and see White Jesus 26 Ways to Sunday today. You could go and see White Mary, Moses, Joseph, all of that. And they're smart to do it. Anybody with the opportunity to do it has the obligation to do it, in my opinion, with regard to that. So that's where I'm going. But there's a number of things. Black science fiction. I know so many Black people, men and women, who have ideas in the sci-fi genre, and they keep wondering when Netflix is going to put them on and when somebody's going to, give them an opportunity. But my advice, Troy, since you asked, is to go do it yourselves. And more to the point in all this, you ain't going to get the this internet thing is a brave new world. And where some see a roadblock, I see an opportunity.
Right.
And that this guy, Jordan Peterson or whatever, recently said something which pissed the people. I don't know why. But he said something to the event, wherever you see a great innovation, it's really evidence of a blown opportunity.
Hmm.
Somebody let their guard down instead of being innovators who seize the opportunity. We have become consumers and those who wish to be appeased. We have an obligation, a duty to provide this platform and content for ourselves. There is literally nothing stopping us from doing it. It's wide open. So run and do it. Look, you can get programs for free where you can edit your whole movie on a phone, for God's sake. You buy a hard drive, you write a script, you get some people together, and you let your imaginations run wild like Regina's mother taught her to do. And you make your own book. So listen, I don't, there'll never be another time. If we don't do it now, the gap will be filled in by those perhaps who mean us no good. And I see that already happen. People making content, wallowing in the mud of slavery and so forth and doing same damn thing over and over. That's what they're doing with the opportunity, which the white industry will pay them to do, you understand? But there's more to the story than suffering and wallowing. There's a story of tremendous accomplishment and bravery and courage and all the things that we've been talking about here. Who's going to tell that story? Do you even know the story? Do we even know that the people in the scriptures are populated with people who look like us and so forth? But even if they, come on. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for now.
I definitely appreciate that. Yeah,
I find it really exciting what you're doing, Harry, in that realm with the films that you are creating. And Troy, I applaud you for giving access to people, connecting people with Creative Cipher, what you're doing in terms of encouraging people to understand, to know, to empower them to get on online, get on these platforms, to seize these opportunities. And also, Harry, for your creating space. Can you talk about the center that you're opening in Chicago?
Yes, thank you for asking. Lily and Marcy Center for the Performing Arts, going to be on 44th and Cottage Grove, Bronzeville, historically significant era in the city where a lot of the art once thrived. So putting back what was there that is now missing through our neglect, taking our eye off the prize. And so it is, as you say, a space. I think it quasi-sacred space where people can come together and dream, as you were talking about earlier, where there will be 2 stages, there'll be rehearsal rooms. We're going to build a digital studio where people can come in as well. Office spaces, of course, cameras, everything state of the art, efficient, well run by a campus management company. And that is something that does not exist on the South Side. It should exist. It is not disruptive. It is restorative. And so we're going to put it back. We're going to put it back better than ever. And it will be, I hope, a place that is visited often and with the reverence that it deserves. The Lily and Marcy Center for the Performing Arts.
Thank you.
thank you for that.
Yes.
All right, you guys, and we are clear.